Okay, we live. Hello, everybody. I'm Cedric Lambion. I'm from School of Data, and this is now the question and answer session of the School of Data Fellowship and Data Expert Program. This is part of the recruitment process, which I repeat is now expected to end on the 2nd of April. So you have 1 week left to apply. The idea of this session is to answer your questions if you have any, but also to give a general introduction in video and live about what those programs are about and who we are looking for in each of the country that we mention in our article on schoolofdata.org. With me are my colleague, Meg from School of Data, Julio and Sheena from the 2015 fellowship class, and we'll be talking together about what is this fellowship. And also I'll be presenting this new program that we're launching in fall in 2017, the Data Expert Program. So Julio, Meg, Sheena, could you introduce yourself? Maybe starting with Julio.
Okay, hello everybody, thanks Cedric. So my name is Julio Lopez. I was fellow in the School of Data program in 2015, as well as Sheena. So right now what I'm doing is working at the Inter-American Development Bank in Washington, D.C. I work in the energy sector, and during the fellowship I was working with, my topic was extractive data, and I was working with different organizations in Ecuador particularly, but in Latin America. So thanks for today.
Great, thank you, Julio. Sheena, could you introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Sheen Opolencia Calub. I'm based in the Philippines. I'm currently a home-based consultant and a new mom to a young boy of 4 months. Julio and I were together in our consultancy in 2015. During my fellowship, I worked on water sanitation and hygiene data management. And we were also working with organizations based in the Philippines on disaster data. So that's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sheena. And we're very happy to say that we have another former fellow that joined us, Nkechi. How are you? Can you introduce yourself? Can you hear me, Nkechi? We have no sound coming from you. Okay.
Can you hear me at all?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so hi everyone.
Hello.
Sorry, did you ask a question?
Yes, could you introduce yourself?
Oh, it's afternoon here, so good afternoon everyone. My name is Nkechi. It's 2015 School of Data Fellow, and I'm sorry I'm smiling so much. I'm so excited to be here and to see all those faces again. When I heard about the hangout, I immediately jumped in and I needed to say hello and to contribute to whatever is going on here right now. Hi, hi Julio, hi Sheena, hi Meg, hi Cedric.
Hi, good to see you again.
Yeah.
And lastly, Meg, could you introduce yourself?
I'm Meg. I've been working for School of Data since 2015, and I work as operations manager.
Fantastic. So we'll be talking about the Fellowship and Data Expert programs, and I'll be asking some questions coming from you, everybody, to the former fellows. But I'll do a quick introduction of School of Data and the programs that we're talking about. So School of Data is program started by Open Knowledge International, which is now more than a decade-old organization, NGO, based in the UK. And basically, a big work of Open Knowledge International has been in promoting open data and building the standards and the tools that made open data possible. So we're talking about the open data definition. We're talking about CCAN, which powers the UK government open data websites and other government websites around the world. And we're talking about tools like Open Spending, which helps publishing fiscal data. So open knowledge has been central to this movement of transparency and efficiency in the government. But at some points, people started asking, what about the users? It's great to open data, but what about the users? The question became, how can we train strategic users, and we're talking about members of civil society, activists, journalists, to be able to use data and to make use of it in their work for transparency, for fighting corruption, for the advocacy work, and everything in between. So that was how School of Data was born in 2012. The project was announced, and we are now 5 years after, and we've built around this core initial idea a network of individuals and organizations doing data literacy work around the world. By data literacy, we mean the ability of an individual or an organization to use data in any way that they see fit in order to create an impact on the world. The ultimate goal of School of Data is really to empower individuals and organizations so they can use data to create a change, a positive change in the world. So that could be a journalist using data journalism to investigate the core issues that matter today. That could be an environmental NGO using data to show illegal dumps. That could be a NGO working on transparency and corruption, using data about public procurement to show the waste of money around the world. There are a lot of uses of data, and it's really a cross-sector issue. So how do we do that? First, we build a network. The network, we are now 15 organizations around the world and more than 100 individuals working together and exchanging best practices in order to improve how we spread and promote data literacy around the world. And we have also programs that are an organized way for us to push certain aspects of data literacy, to tackle different challenges. One of the main challenge of data literacy today, and even more when we started in 2012, was the lack of individuals able to become what we call data leaders. Data leaders are people able to do trainings, able to produce content, learning content, and able to be connected to a community, build a community around them in order to reach our goals of spreading data literacy. And so that's how the fellowship came to be. The idea of the fellowship is to build individual data leaders that can help spearhead our work of data literacy promotion, data literacy advocacy in their own countries. This is really a locally based program where we in the coordination team, me and my colleagues, coordinate in partnership with various organizations, but most of the work is done on the ground in events, in coordination with local partners by the fellows. The fellowship is our oldest program. We're now in the 5th iteration of the fellowship in 2017, and the fellowship has evolved, but remains very similar to how we imagined it. Fellows are expected to grow during the fellowship. We learn as much from them as they learn from us. With several activities that are planned, such as an international event that we call the School of Data Summer Camp, to plan the fellowship and to learn from other members of the network. But fellows are also expected to bring their own expertise. So either expertise in government data, either expertise in extractive data, or either expertise in water and hygiene and sanitation data. This is really depending on the focus of each year. And as you can see on the schoolofdata.org blog, we have several topics of focus this year. This year, we're recruiting fellows around extractive data, around procurement data, and around data journalism. Extractive data, we're partnering with Publish What You Pay, which is an international organization working with coalitions around the world on promoting transparency in the extractive sector. We're specifically looking for fellows either in Senegal or Côte d'Ivoire for this track. In procurement data, we're looking for fellows from around the world able to show their expertise on public finance and budget data, and who are able to present us an interesting project in order to spread data literacy around this topic. We're looking also, as usual, for data journalists. Data journalism stays always a relevant topic. And lastly, as happens for all fellowship, you're always able to use the on focus track to propose your own idea about what your fellowship could be about in your country. If we find ideas that stand out, we will contact you and see if a fellowship can happen. Don't hesitate to apply, even if you may not be selected. The applicants of the School of Data Fellowship are part of our wider community of data practitioners. We look at all applications, and you never know, we may contact you afterwards for working with us on other kind of missions, even if you may not be selected for this specific fellowship. Lastly, we have launched a new program in 2017 called the Data Expert Program. The Data Expert Program is a bit different than the fellowship, but very complementary. If we look at the broader picture, at the beginning, the idea is to raise the tide of data literacy, to build a community of individuals and organizations able to understand how to work with data, understand where the data is, understand how to analyze it, to present it, in order, as I said, to create an impact on their society, a positive social change. But in the context of the fellowship, which is a 9-month-long program for each class, we're not able to do everything. And especially, we're not able to tackle heavy and very involved data projects. So the Data Expert Program focuses on this other part, the data project. To run the Data Expert Program, we partner with organizations, this year with the National Resource Governance Institute, specialized in the extractive industry. And we select local partners on the ground who have an interesting data project and who want to learn how to become data practitioners themselves, how to become autonomous in running this kind of data project. So what we're recruiting with, who we're recruiting with the data expert program are people who have a specific skill set which matches with the needs of those organizations. There are three aspects to the data expert program. There is the part about running the data project, supporting the organization in running this project. It's not about running it alone, but really supporting the organization. There's a part about training the organization on the specific skill required to run this project. It's not about saying that in 9 months you will transform the organization. It's about saying that as much as possible, at the end of the program, the organization can reproduce the project on its own. And lastly, this is about connecting the organization with the community. And it is a continuation of the fellowship in the sense that ideally, we had a fellow in the country that had started this work of community building. And then it's just a matter of making sure that the organization that we're working with does not stay isolated, but connects with the rest of the data community to exchange best practice, to present the projects that they have, and to continue on even after the program is over with their data activities. So both the fellowship and the data expert programs are 9-month programs. The stipend is a bit different. For fellows, because this is a regular work of 10 days a month, we have a $1,000 stipend, USD stipend. This is for covering your expenses, your local travel, and all life requirements to be able to work in the best condition during the fellowship. In the case of the data expert, you are paid a bit more like a consultant with a variable pay depending on the number of days that you do in the month, up to 10 days per month. But it may be that some month you will work 5 days and the next one 15 days. So you need to have this flexibility. And we're talking about around $10,000 in total. So this is an overview of the fellowship and the data expert program. We're very happy to take your questions, and we'll be discussing with Julio and Kechi and Sheena about their own experience as former fellows, former School of Data fellows. What I could start with, and maybe Julio could answer this first question, is what motivated you to apply to the fellowship?
Well, thanks for the question. In my case, I was working with civil society organizations in Ecuador before, particularly working in access to information in the extractive sector, which was a big issue. Is like a big topic back in Ecuador and many countries in the world where for mining industry is taking place. So I think I'm motivated by the work that I was doing, before, and also the idea of creating a local community in open data. I think it's a really great tool nowadays to not only empower and working towards transparency and I don't know, citizen engagements or participation, but also in terms of having more accurate decision making. So I think that was my inspiration, I guess.
Great, thank you. Okay, Sheena, could you tell us, for example, what do you think was the main lessons, the main learnings that you got from doing this fellowship program?
Thank you for that question, Cedric. I think, well, there were many lessons that I have learned after being a fellow of School of Data. And one of the biggest lesson is that you really have to widen your horizon and identify good partners and extend your network in order for you to be able to deliver the things that you want to uh, be able to provide with your fellowship. Because when I joined School of Data, my network was very limited in terms of open data and data literacy here in the Philippines. But after joining School of Data and actually doing all my activities, I was able to know more organizations and engage with different communities and sectors. So I think you really have to open-minded and learn more about and contextualize the things that you need within the sector.
Great. And what's interesting is that you came with the expertise of water, sanitation, and hygiene, but the question was how to connect that with the data, open data transparency community to be able to do new things in your initial sector.
That's correct. Um, well, during that time, data literacy and how data was being used in disaster management was quite difficult here in the Philippines. So being a School of Data fellow actually became an opportunity for me to share my experiences in information management during emergencies so that more people will know that data is very crucial, most especially when you are doing response, for example, in water, sanitation, and hygiene.
Great, thank you. And Kechi, could you talk about maybe the difficulties of the fellowship? What you need to be aware of when applying for this program?
Okay, so from my end, talking about difficulties, I like to think that I had a lot of success stories more than difficulties because it was something, the fellowship was something I really wanted to do, and School of Data afforded me the opportunity to express myself in that angle. So I came from the government sector. I had not had a lot of experience interfacing with the user side of open data and teaching people about data literacy. It had been about opening up data to the public, but actually interfacing with the users, the journalists, the civil societies, and to get them to understand and build their skills in utilizing data for social good was something I had not really been involved in, and I was very passionate and interested in doing. So joining at first for me was the fact that I came from one part, the supply side, so I had to immediately read up or immediately expand my own horizon to incorporate the whole stakeholders of open data. So the difficulty, no much difficulty in applying because, as you've already said, you have to have had an experience and you're bringing in your expertise into the program. So you have to be actually sure that you have you've had a past experience working with data, and then you also have a goal in whatever sector the fellowship year is turning towards. And other difficulty, but I won't call it difficulty, another challenge, or it was a good challenge, was the fact that you have to work with people from different areas. It's a global organization, so you're working with people from different areas, different time zones. You have to catch up and get to understand and improve your people's skills. And another area was the fact that it's global, so it's not about really talking in your local context anymore. At some point, you have to increase your knowledge, you have to increase your writing skills. And I think I really learned how to write properly, write on a global scale with School of Data. So it's not really a challenge, but it is an opportunity to improve oneself. So I wouldn't want anyone to see it as a difficulty, but see it as the fellowship here as a time to grow and expand their self. in whatever they're doing and to improve their skills. So that's the way I'll say it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nkechi. Indeed, I would confirm that there is a lot of writing involved in the fellowship. You are expected to write learning content, which is definitely a specific kind of writing. You will receive a lot of support from Meg and I, specifically on the content production part. But this is really important that content is really important in the sense that it supports the other work that you're doing. By its own, this is not something that you can expect to publish and people will come to it, but you are able to produce it as part of your strategy in order to either use it during workshop or redirect people to it after you finish an event or an awareness building event, etc. So this is a really important part of the fellowship. And this is why we insist on fellows writing content during their fellowship. Of course, not everybody is fluent in English. And even though we do expect fellows to be able to have conversation in English, we do not expect you to be perfectly fluent in writing or speaking English. So you'll have support on that end, and I think you'll be very pleased of seeing what you were able to produce through the fellowship. And this is part of what we said about we learn from you and you learn from us. Maybe what's interesting if we're talking about the activities of the fellowship, you have the content production, you have the events, and you have the general community building. One of the new things that we require in 2017 is that we will ask fellows at the beginning of their fellowship to analyze the community. So if you are a specialist of the extractive sector, we will give you a questionnaire that will allow you to do interviews with stakeholders of the sector, and especially organization and journalists working within civil society, of course, because this is the focus of School of Data. But the idea is for you to have a good understanding of who's there, who's doing what, and what are the weaknesses of actors of the field. Maybe maybe a lot of actors are doing a lot of advocacy directed to the governments, but the conversation and the explanation to the general public is a weakness of the group. So this kind of analysis allows you to plan your fellowship around the weaknesses of the group you're going to work with. The idea being that the fellowship is not something that we push on you. The fellowship is something that we build together. School of Data provides you some expertise, and when I say School of Data, I'm not talking about an organization. I'm talking about the whole network providing you an expertise, providing you the shared experience that we've built over the years, such as the data pipeline or the data expedition format, things that we've built over the years, and you can find them on our website, especially on the tab methodology. But we will learn as well from you, and the work that you'll be doing, analyzing organization on the ground, etc., is something that we'll use to help you shape your fellowship. And depending on the reality on the ground, depending on your skills, depending on the context in general, your fellowship will look very different from another fellow. So another part is the question of data. Do you need to be a programmer to be a fellow? Even though we're talking about data, is it about programming? Is it about having very advanced technical skills? And I think I will let Sheena talk about this, about her experience.
Well, I think the best answer to that question is no. You don't have to be a data programmer, or you don't have to like really know everything about data. In my case, I just love data. I work with data, but my background is really on political science and disaster management. The only good thing about it is that I'm working on data during emergencies as an information manager. So I think what is more important is that you have an appreciation on the use of data, why you, and you can just link up with different organizations or individuals who know better and can actually assist you so that you can come up with good activities and events and, and products that are related to the data that you are working on.
Great. Could you give examples, Sheena, of the kind of data you use and the kind of software that you would use during the trainings? And also maybe talk about the audience that you had during your trainings.
Well, when I was a fellow, I was working on, as mentioned earlier, water, sanitation, and hygiene data that are being used during emergency response. So we're looking at how much water is being delivered to communities, what is the current access level of communities to toilets. So those are the kind of data that I am working on. So when I was a fellow, I worked with the local Department of Health here in the Philippines. And I engaged with their sanitation officers and sanitation engineers. And we tried to data collection tools. For example, I did a mobile data collection Skillshare with School of Data. And these data collection tools were actually developed for the sanitation engineers and sanitation officers so they can collect water, sanitation, and hygiene data whenever they go to the field, their assessments. So the data collection tool that we used during that time was Kobo Collect. And what's actually interesting was I knew about the Kobo Collect before I joined School of Data, but I only learned how to actually use it and come up with good data collection tools when I was already a fellow. So as NK mentioned earlier, you actually learn new things when you're already a fellow, and you don't really have to know everything when you are applying because you will learn new things when you're already a fellow.
Fantastic, thank you. Maybe Nkechi, then Julio afterwards, could you talk about your experience when organizing events? Who was coming at those events? What were the outcomes and what kind of things were you talking about?
So I'm glad to hear of the new way things are going to be with respect to people doing sort of a community mapping with the stakeholders within their community. So that was something I had to do at the start of my own fellowship year, and I needed to really understand what was happening within the community, who was doing what, who was interested in what, and be able to know which sector of Nigeria or which area of Nigeria would be the best place to have those events, and where we had a more the most concentration of data users. So that was a very important and interesting exercise that I did. And also, luckily for me, I had a senior fellow, Oludotu, in Nigeria too, who had already mapped out the whole ecosystem and was also there. So together we had events, and we had events with students, we had events with journalists, we had a major event, open data party. So at a whole, we had about 4 events in Nigeria during my fellowship here, which was pretty interesting. And there's been sustainable conversation after those events. So we had events that were targeted at specific areas. Agriculture, we had events that were targeted at journalism as a whole, and we had events that were targeted at health. So one thing we really did was trying to understand what was the economic priority of the country, and which of the sectors. We had journalists, and we had people who were doing great things. So we needed to look for where the strength was, and then do events and upskilling programs that could assist those civil society at that point in time. So generally speaking, I think the community mapping or the mapping exercise they will be doing at the beginning of the fellowship will be very useful in helping them understand who the stakeholders are or would be during their fellowship here, and the right places to channel their energy to, or the resources to.
Thank you, Nkechi. What about you, Julio?
Okay, thanks. Well, I think in my case, first I was trying to get to know the different organizations and local people that were working open data, because back then in Ecuador there was not much on this specific sector, and even more in like civil society organizations. So I think that was key to get to know people and where to do, you know, the calls or the invitations for the events. And also I think once you get to know the audience for your trainings or community events, I think you can plan in advance what is working and what is not working. For in my case, I had in the audience government, civil society, academia. It was a variety of organizations and with different expectations from the trainings. So I think that was something I learned. So you have to target many of the trainings depending on your audience, and that could give you like more, I don't know, a closer relation to with these people. For example, now in Ecuador, I did these trainings in 2015. Government is sending me emails and asking me if I can join for specific events or trainings that they are having nowadays in open data. So it's 2017 and initiatives in open data are coming in Ecuador, but you know, it's already 2 years since I started the fellowship, so they are still thinking on I don't know, bringing other people into these kind of things. And I think that's positive because you get to, I don't know, meet the people that is promoting these policies, but also who can use the data, users, civil society, academia. So probably I think that's a great lesson from these events.
Great, thank you. We have a question, well, a general question, which is interesting for you to give your opinion, because your fellowship were very different from each other. Joseph Kariuki, who asked, what does it take to be a successful fellow? Maybe Julio, you could start, then Nkechi, then Sheena. What do you think are the important features, or maybe state of mind, or organization that you have to set up to be a successful fellow?
Okay, thanks for the question. Well, I think probably, well, it's my personal opinion. I think to organize the activities in advance is better. Have a more understanding of what the activities are going to be that month. For example, if you do this every month, and then you know what tasks or time you have to take to make these activities happen. So I think maybe not be afraid of talking about these topics with different audiences. So for example, for me, it was really, at the beginning, it was complicated to talk to people that were not in this field or in the open data movement, because you know it's kind of new. So for instance, many people have lots of questions and will ask you a lot of questions. So don't be afraid of asking this. Read a lot. The School of Data has a lot of information in the website, so you can basically go through all of those and take the ownership of these topics. So use a lot of material that we already had in the website. And probably, I don't know, I think if you are passionate about what you're doing, probably if you choose a specific topic, working on this, doing that gives you a lot of energy, and you will be really involved into the activity. So I think that's also something that happened to me.
Thank you. And Kechi, what about your opinion? Hello, and Kechi? Can you hear me? Okay, maybe Sheena can go while we solve the problem with Nkechi.
Okay. Well, I think I agree with Julio that
Okay.
for
Yeah, it's me.
to be a to be a
Yeah.
successful
Okay.
fellow, you have to
I'll
be
call
well
him.
organized.
Please go on, Sheena.
Okay, you have to be well organized, especially in managing your time and setting up events and activities. So that's very important. In my case, I was working full time while I was a fellow, so I was really juggling through managing all these events while working. But it was all worth it because there are a lot of people from the School of Data network who are willing to help, especially the former fellows. And don't be afraid to ask questions from people or whenever you engage with new organizations or individuals.
Great. Thank you, Sheena. Nkechi?
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you now.
Yeah, oh, great. So it's a bit of network issues. So please, could you ask the question again?
So the question is, what does it take, in your opinion, to be a successful fellow?
Okay, to be a successful fellow, I would say, one, you have to be really passionate about data. You have to really want to solve problems with it. You have to be really interested in working with it. So if you already have that foundational passion, then your passion is fueled towards a particular sector or direction, and it falls within the scope of School of Data, then I think you have everything you need to become a successful fellow, because School of Data gives you the platform, gives you the network, gives you the support, and it's not just a 1 year support. You have access to a network for a really long time along that career. So if you're interested in solving social problems and you're very passionate in seeing building skills or helping to build skills of people who are interested in utilizing data for while they are working on the social goals, then I think School of Data is the right place for you. Or if it's the extractive industry, if it's whatever industry in which the fellowship year falls within, if that's your interest, then that's what's important. And I think that's that for me. And also, you have to have a very good test for increasing what you know and improving your skills. If you have that, then you're in the right place applying to School of Data, and hopefully you get selected.
Fantastic. I guess an important question would be, so School of Data, as you said, Nkechi, gives you the platform, access to a network, and some of the tools and methodology that you need to be successful as a fellow.
Yes.
But what is the impact? What was the impact for you? Now you 2 years removed from the end of the fellowship, so you have some perspective. What was the impact of going through the fellowship for your activities afterwards, for your career, or for anything really?
Yeah, it's been 2 years. And thinking of this, Cedric, I should tell the story about what has happened in the past 2 years. Thinking of that.
Please do.
So I must tell you that where I was at the beginning of the fellowship and after the fellowship and right now are not the same. I have really advanced far. Most of the people I've met and I've worked with in the past 2 years has been through the School of Data platform or being part of the fellowship. So alone and being tagged, I won't call it tagged, but being recognized as a fellow in this esteemed organization that alone opens doors for you. It gives you credibility. It's people you are trusted, you know. So that backing towards projects you're doing, towards other organizations you're trying to work with, towards partnership you're building, that has been one of the most useful thing I've taken out of this fellowship. And then the people I've met still working on projects in Nigeria, other fellows from other countries. I mean, there's a network you can go to whenever you have challenges or whenever you need to even meet anyone, you know. So that's the network itself has been invaluable. And the fact that one very beautiful thing about School of Data is most of the trainings you want to have or you are looking to hold, there's a resource for you somewhere, you know. And even if there's no resource, there's also a place or someone you can meet to get the resource. So that alone gives you a certain level of comfort and backing when you're thinking of doing projects. And for me, that's been one of the most rewarding thing. And I keep going around talking about data and working with data and even pushing boundaries confidently, because I know that I can always call Cedric and I can always call Meg sometime if I need something. And of course, Sheena and the other fellows around the world. So that's been very useful for me.
Thank you, Nkechi. That was a great answer. Maybe Julio and Sheena can pitch in, and I think we're going to run to the end of this Q&A.
Okay, so well, in my case, I think having a School of Data as part of your career was, I mean, in my case, was very significant. Working with a lot of organizations in Latin America, because a School of Data in Latin America is Escuela de Datos, in Spanish, has a lot of collaboration with different organizations. And in my case, I am doing that. And as I specialize in the energy sector, I tend to collaborate a lot with organizations that are working with energy, with my field, and they are always looking for things in the School of Data, and they ask me how's the network, if I can connect with anyone in the network, and so on. So I think that was really good. Also back home in Ecuador, a lot of people still know School of Data, and they ask me whenever there is an event in Open Data, they always send me emails or contact me on Twitter. And I think that's great. For me, it was such a great experience, and I'm still collaborating with many organizations. So I think the impact is maybe you will see the impact after you do the trainings and all the capacity buildings and creating materials for the project. But also, this is something you will be doing the rest of your life. So I think that it's in that sense. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Julio. Sheena?
Well, for me, aside from being asked to speak during Open Data Day, and in fact, Cedric was with me last year when I did it here in the Philippines, being a School of Data fellow actually led me to work with more organizations. And now I'm working on disaster data. I was also given the opportunity to work with audit here in the Philippines to conduct trainings for them on data visualization and analysis. And I was also given the opportunity to develop training materials for different organizations on how you manage data, how you visualize data. And after the fellowship, I of course I gained more friends because of the fellows, the 2015 fellows. Um, and I was also given the opportunity to work on the School of Data Member Support Program and develop pre-training data survey templates for the network. So, School of Data.
Good answer, Sheena. Good answer. What's important, I think what it highlights, those answers highlight, is that when you finish your fellowship, your story with School of Data is not over. You become actually a formal individual member of the School of Data network. And that grants you the ability to participate deeply with the rest of the community. You have access to the internal programs that we run, and of course you have a privileged access to the rest of the community of the trainers. So the fellowship, once selected in the fellowship, this is then a long story that starts between School of Data and you. I think this is the right moment, if ever, to close this Q&A. Thank you for the ones following us. We'd be happy to field any further questions on Twitter, on Facebook, anytime. Please check schoolofdata.org, where we have the announcement, of course, of the fellowship and the data expert programs, but also everything about our methodologies, the former fellows of School of Data, and the presentation of our network. As I said, we are now in 50 countries around the world. And soon in the Philippines, by the way, with an official organization. But we're very happy to look all the time at the applications, because we see a lot of potential in all of you. So don't hesitate to apply. As I said, applying means maybe being selected for the fellowship, but even if not, maybe working with School of Data on other projects in the future. We have also a Francophone fellowship this year. We'll be in Francophone Africa and in Haiti. So if you have questions specific to the Francophone fellowship, which will be partly coordinating in French as well, no problem, ask away and we'll answer. Thank you, everybody. It's been 1 hour, so we are on time. Fellows are available for questions through Twitter as well. We share the Twitter ID on our own Twitter and Facebook. And thank you for following, and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Good luck.